Hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm delighted to be here with you all this evening. My name is Carrie Vieira. I work currently as a restorative justice specialist here in MCPS, but I started my career as a teacher. I was a middle school English teacher in New York City, where I'm from. I started my career over 20 years ago and have taught middle and high school English in New York, abroad in Japan, here in MCPS. And I discovered mindfulness practice my first year teaching, and it is what completely transformed my teaching career, and it totally changed the way I showed up in the classroom and in the world, and it changed the way I related to my students and to the adolescents I worked with. And since then, it's been just a really beautiful journey. I have completed training programs in teaching mindfulness practices over the years and have been teaching for staff within MCPS since 2016. And so I'm really happy to have the opportunity to share some of these practices and with all of you as well. So we're going to start by just taking a moment to reflect on, mindfulness practices are one way that we can manage stress. A lot of the research has shown that they're effective in helping to reduce anxiety, help us regulate our emotions, find calm. And so, but it's not the only way. So we all have different strategies and different things that we do. And so I wanted to start by just giving us a moment to reflect on the things we already do right now to help ourselves release stress or practice self-care. So if you wouldn't mind just dropping in the chat, one thing you do to release stress, to find calm if you're, starting to get busy, or anything you do to help yourself stay centered as we move through our very busy days. All right, thank you. We have some folks starting to chime in on the chat, saying they like to walk, listen to nice songs, go for a run, breathe and stretch, walk, sleep, rest, music. So we're actually starting to see some patterns here. Walking, exercising, movement is a key part of our overall wellness. And it's actually a key part of our mindfulness practice as well. I see yoga, I see breathing, breath work is another important part of mindfulness practice. And then I see some other beautiful things here like music and sleeping, walking the dog. Yes, these are all great. And so it's important for us when we think about supporting our students and our young ones as well, that we kind of bring awareness to our children, what are the things that we do that we have found that work for us and help them on their journey to figure out what works for them. And so mindfulness practices are one example of something we can do to help us stay steady when life gets just busy, or sometimes we get overwhelmed by our emotions and everything we have to do. So we're going to start with a little mindfulness challenge, just 1 minute, just to see what happens. So we're going to put a little timer on the clock. And for 1 minute, I'll let you know when we're starting. For 1 minute, you're just going to simply pay attention to your breath. We're not going to think about anything else. Now, what is the mind going to probably do? It's probably going to try to think about 1,000 other things in that minute. That's natural. But we're going to keep bringing our attention back to our breath. Every single time our mind starts thinking about something else, we're going to bring our attention back to our breath. And we're going to do our very best to try to stay with our attention on our breath for the full minute. But don't worry if other thoughts pop up. Just simply say, oh, there's a thought. I'm coming back to focusing on my breath. Okay, so we're going to do that for 1 minute. In order to practice this, just simply sit comfortably in your seat. Take a moment to turn away from the screen so that the light from the screen doesn't disturb your eyes. And you're either going to look downward at your table, at your lap, at the floor, or if you're comfortable, you can close your eyes. And we're going to put 1 minute on the clock. Start by taking one big, deep breath in through your nose. Blow it out through your mouth. Let your attention come to focus on your breathing and stay here for the next minute, just experiencing the movement of the breath in and out. At the end of your next exhale, you can refocus your gaze and come back to the screen and to the group. And so that's just one little taste. And we'll notice through practices like that, you might have find one day you practice for that minute and you're focused and calm and quiet and it's lovely. And the next day you might try to practice for a minute and you'll find that the mind's just racing and zooming all over the place. And so it's the practice of mindfulness is showing up and noticing what's here and trying to bring our energy and attention to this moment, to a single focus, so that we can harness our energy and bring it inward and nourish ourselves instead of sending our energy out into 1,000 different directions like we usually are racing around all day long. And I say that as a parent myself. I'm a parent of 2 MCPS children in addition to working full time and having 1,000 schedules to manage for the family. So I know what it's like with our energy in so many different places. So mindfulness is helping us balance out by taking all of that scattered energy and trying to bring it right here to this moment. So I'm going to invite us during our time together to keep bringing our attention and awareness here, because especially on Zoom, it's very easy for our mind to go elsewhere. We might have 1,000 other tabs up on our screen and we're toggling between email and the Zoom, or we might be, trying to do a bunch of other things at the same time while we're listening. But the mindfulness challenge is the invitation to just be here for this time as best as we can and give ourselves permission to show up here and give ourselves permission to put aside everything else just for a moment and see what happens when we bring our attention right here together. So let's continue. Why mindfulness? And we're going to practice more in just a moment, but let's actually talk a little bit about, why we do it and what it is. So think about your experiences with your children and other young folks today. The world they live in is different than the world each one of us grew up in. So from your experiences and your interactions with your children and with other young folks, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges or issues that they're facing today? So go ahead and take a moment and just drop your ideas in the chat here. What are the biggest challenges facing our young people today? I see social media influences, constant contact with too many, getting off the iPad, bullying, screen time, keeping up with school. Yeah, I see screen time and peers, listening. Screen time is coming up a lot. Pressures with sports, adapting to new cultures, absolutely. These are all really great responses. And so we have, a world where our students, cultures and languages, absolutely. So we have a world where our young people today are interacting with each other very differently than the way many of us interacted with our friends when we were growing up. Many of us didn't have the access to all of the technology that our kids do. And so, they're learning to interact a lot more often through screens. And so I see social media and screen time coming up often. And what we've found is that some of the recent research shows that it is potentially having an impact on our students. And in fact, earlier this year, our Surgeon General actually released some warnings out there about, the influences of social media on young developing brains. Also named loneliness a national epidemic. Here are some of the recent statistics letting us know what our young people are carrying today. One thing is anxiety. Nearly one out of every 3 adolescents will meet the criteria for an anxiety disorder by the time they turn 18. That's a huge number of our young people dealing with anxiety. Trauma. 46% of all children in the US have experienced at least one adverse childhood experience, at least one traumatic experience. That's about half. And that number is pre-pandemic. So, the more updated number is likely higher. Distraction. And I think several of you were kind of pointing to this a little bit when talking about screen time. On average, US teens today are spending about 9 hours a day on screens, not including the time they spend for schoolwork. So outside of schoolwork, they're spending about 9 hours a day on digital entertainment. When you think about how many hours are going into that, you can see how it impacts our human relationships, our communication styles. It also impacts our attention and our focus, because the way screens are designed, the way a lot of our social media platforms and video games and apps and things like that are designed to be very stimulating for the mind. Things flash quickly, and so the mind kind of moves from one thing to the next very quickly. And so it impacts focus and attention. It's not all bad, not at all. But we have to recognize those things so we can see where we might need to balance things out. And the last thing is isolation. And this refers to also what the Surgeon General put out earlier last year, in 2023, about loneliness being a national epidemic. Currently, we have about 40% of high school seniors reporting that they often feel lonely and left out. So why are we mentioning these things? Well, these are all things that mindfulness in the research and the emerging research around mindfulness, these are all things that mindfulness has the potential to support, to help with, or mitigate. So what's in it for your child? Well, at this point now, we have thousands of studies that have been done on mindfulness practices. There's still lots of work to be done in the field, but there's a lot of emerging research that's showing lots of promise. So the research is starting to show that mindfulness can help improve focus. And so this is something, that our students need, but we all, frankly, could benefit from focusing better in school, in life. It can help with releasing stress and anxiety. It can help us think more clearly and make smarter choices. It's been shown to activate the prefrontal cortex, this part of our brain in the front here, which helps us with logical decision-making. It can help us think more positive thoughts, which can help us access hope. And that's especially important if there's a child who is experiencing trauma, to be able to access a feeling of hope, to be able to develop resilience to keep going. It can help us feel more peaceful or calm. And it can help us better understand and control for students, it can help them better understand and control their emotions as well as the emotions of others. Mindfulness is an inward journey. We go inward to discover how we're feeling and how our feelings impact us. When I'm feeling angry, what does it do to my body? What does it do to my breath? And so we start to understand ourselves better. We start to understand our emotions better. We start to understand what helps us navigate and calm down when we're starting to get upset. We can also start to better recognize those things in others so we can understand how we're impacting each other as well. And of course, all adults can experience the same benefits as what's listed on here. So this is not just exclusively for children, this is for everybody. So what is it? What is mindfulness? There's lots of different kind of ways of thinking about it out there. So I'm just going to share with you kind of the way we think about it here in MCPS and the way we practice it. we see mindfulness as a study of the self. Our students are usually looking in textbooks and they're studying material from others, other experts, scientists, historians who've come up with material and knowledge for us to learn from. But mindfulness doesn't have a textbook. We are the textbook ourselves. We are studying ourself and who we are. So it includes developing self-awareness, just becoming aware of what's happening with ourselves in moment to moment, noticing when we're distracted, noticing when we're feeling joyful, noticing when something, gets us upset and angry. Self-understanding. We start to understand ourselves better. We start to understand why I reacted that way, because that thing triggered me. So we get deeper self-understanding. And self-regulation, meaning we start to understand the tools, the strategies that we can use to help ourselves come back to a calm space when we're starting to go off the rails. And so it's cultivated through research-backed practices that help us align body, breath, and mind. Those are the three key components, and we're aligning them. And what we mean by aligning them is we're bringing them all together into this moment and this space. We are, as you can see in that second paragraph there, we are steadying the mind and the emotions. And we're kind of getting in touch with the peaceful and intuitive qualities of our heart, our inner knowledge, and our inner sense of calm. And so if you think about, so you see those three things, body, breath, and mind. Usually during our day, we are not all in the same, all the parts of ourselves are not always in the same place. And what I mean by that is our body could be somewhere, but our mind is somewhere else. This can happen when we're brushing our teeth and we're thinking about all the things we have to do today. Or we are, preparing a meal and our mind is, playing over maybe an email we received earlier today. Or maybe we're driving and we're thinking about other things. And sometimes we can end up driving somewhere and not even realizing we got there already because we were really busy thinking about other things along the way. So our body was there. Our body was there brushing our teeth. Our body was there cooking. Our body was there driving. And for many of our students, their bodies are sitting in the class, but their minds are doing other things. They're thinking about something else. So there's a disconnect between the body and the mind, because the mind doesn't kind of sit still with the body in the present moment. It flutters around. And what we notice through mindfulness is as we pay attention and we notice that that can create a feeling of unease or unsettledness. And it can lead to, over time, it can lead to feelings of stress. Sometimes it's just low levels of stress. We don't even notice it. And over time, that can have impacts on our overall health and well-being. Because our energy is scattering, as we mentioned earlier. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to get that mind that's all over the place, and we're trying to bring it here to have this experience that the body's having. So if our body's here in front of the computer, the mind is here too, listening and not trying to do something else, another task. And our breath is important because it helps us make the connection. It's kind of a bridge. Because if our mind is thinking about 1,000 other things, we can always find our breath because it's always happening. That's the beautiful thing. The breath is always happening in every given moment. And so we can always find our breath. There I am, here I am, I'm breathing, and it gets us into our body, into this moment. We take big breaths. So we're going to do some practices with body, breath, and mind, mindfulness practices today. So when we do practices with the body, there's so many different kinds. All we're going to do today is one example of each of these. But please note that this is just one example. There's so many others. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do some movement of the body. And mindful movement is intentionally moving the body in ways that help us release tension, improve our flexibility, and strengthen our core muscles. It also helps us increase our energy. So that's what we do when we're moving mindfully. Many of you talked about loving to walk. You can walk mindfully by walking with full presence, paying attention to each step, paying attention to the beautiful sights and sounds around you, and just immersing yourself in that experience. It's a mindful movement. Breath work. We're always breathing. We don't have to be taught how to breathe, but we can be taught how to breathe well. Because what the science has shown is that when we're stressed out, we don't breathe well. We breathe shallowly, we breathe rapidly, and sometimes we end up holding our breath without even realizing it in uncomfortable or tense ways. Think of how you breathe when you're angry. It's a shorter, kind of more exerted breath. Think of how you breathe when you're relaxed. It's a bigger, deeper, and fuller breath. When we know that about our breath, we can use the breath. We can actually manipulate the breath intentionally to try to help us find calm when we're starting to get upset. And lastly, we do practices with the mind. They're mind-focusing practices. And so they help us focus our mind's attention on the present moment. Maybe we focus on counting the breath in and out. Maybe we focus on a positive thought or a positive image in the mind. Maybe we focus on our senses, just what we can see around us, what we can hear. But whatever it is trying to bring the mind to a single point of focus so that it is not either racing around in a million different directions, or so that it's not fixating on a thought that's hurtful to us. Because that's another habit of the mind, is that it'll fixate sometimes on a bad memory or a thought that's causing harm, and then it'll just replay the thought over and over and over and over in our mind, causing us stress. And sometimes it's doing that even when we don't have, we're not in an experience where that needs to be happening. So we're stressing ourselves out more than we need to. And so our mind focusing practices help us kind of detach from those thoughts and help us focus onto something that is steadier and calm. So we're going to give that a try now. All right. And I do see some comments in the chat. Yes, driving while thinking what I was going to cook. Absolutely. And driving to work on a Saturday morning, supposed to be going to Target. I've done that. I've driven myself on the way to work when I was supposed to go somewhere else. So yes, you know what I'm talking about. All right. So let's practice together. We're going to practice 3 things together. We're going to practice some mindful movement. In this case, we're going to do some spinal stretches. You can do these from a chair. So you're just going to find a nice comfortable seat where you can have a long, tall spine. So wherever you are, you can practice from a chair. And you can also practice from the floor. Some folks like to sit kind of cross-legged, crisscross applesauce on the floor. You can do that as well. We're also going to do some breath. We're going to do 4, 7, 8 breathing, where we inhale and count to 4. We hold the breath for 7. We exhale for 8. Holding the breath for 7 counts and exhaling for 8 is hard. The first few times you do it, it's going to be uncomfortable. But as you get used to it, you'll realize that the holding of the breath and the slowing down of the exhale is what helps activate our parasympathetic nervous system. It's our relaxation response in the body. So just keep giving it a try, even if it feels a little uncomfortable at first. And lastly, we're going to practice sensory imagery, which is a type of mind-focusing technique that helps us focus on the senses of the present moment, helps us get rid of thoughts that might be stressing us out right now. So we're going to do the best we can with everything. Nothing is intended to cause any, injury. So if you have an injury, like when we do our spinal stretches, if you've got any kind of surgery or anything that's going on and something doesn't feel right for you, just don't do it. This is just intended to feel kind of beautiful and help us circulate the blood flow in our body. So if anything doesn't feel right for you, just back out of that. And you can always join us in on the next part that feels best for you. All right. So I'm going to stop screen sharing now so that you can see me, because we're going to do some movements, and I want you to be able to see the movements a little better. So I'm going to be here, and I'm going to scooch myself back just a little bit so you can see a little bit better, and I'm in a chair. I'm in a rolly chair. Don't use a rolly chair. It's just the one I'm in right now, but don't use it. Use a steady chair if you have one. Okay. If you can reach with your feet planted on the floor, just plant your feet on the floor. Have a nice long, tall spine, just a long, tall back. And you'll notice that I have a little space between the back of the chair and my back so that I can take some of these movements. So we're going to start by simply placing our hands face down in our lap. Face down in our lap. And take a big breath in through the nose. Blow it out through the mouth. First, check in and just notice, how's the body feeling right now? Is it comfortable? Are there any areas of tension or tightness? And just notice what's there. And now with a nice long, tall spine, we're going to start to round our torso so that we're making some big circles with our torso around our hips. So our hips and our legs are staying stable, but our torso is making a circle. Our hands can stay in our lap. And as we round forward, we might breathe in. And as we round back, we might breathe out. We're just going to take some movements like this that help us release tension around our hips and in our lumbar spine, the lowest part of the spine. So you can do these at whatever pace feels good for you. You don't have to go too fast or slow, your choice. Next time you come around through center, take a pause and reverse your direction. So as you're continuing to draw your circles, you're finding alignment with your breathing so that you're inhaling as you circle forward, exhaling as you're rounding back. And then come to center. Relax your gaze down. Take a big breath in through your nose. Blow it out through the mouth. Notice how that first movement has caused you to feel or shift anything in your body. And now we're going to move up a little bit in the spine and focus a little more up from that lower spine into the kind of thoracic spine. We're going to do flexion and extension of the spine. This is a key part of how we move the spine to promote health and well-being, especially as we age. Our spines are so important. So keeping the muscles around the spine strong and keeping the spine mobile is critical to our overall health and well-being. So to do that, we keep our hands just as we were before, face down on our lap. And we're simply going to flex the spine forward. Maybe we lift the chin and gaze and take a big breath in. And as we exhale, we're going to take a little rounding of the back, and we chin to chest, gaze at your navel. So you're just moving with your breath in and out. So again, we're just flexing forward, inhaling in, maybe we lift the gaze, and then rounding back, gaze down, exhale out. Take a couple more. At the end of your next exhale, come back to neutral spine, big breath in, blow it out. Extend the arms out to our sides, about parallel to the ground. We're going to bend at the elbows and just let our hands come to rest on top of our shoulders. You might have your forefingers in the front, your thumbs in the back. And we're just going to take some easy twists. Our head and neck are going to be in line with our chest. And we're just going to twist open to one side and then the other. Again, our hips and our feet and legs are stable. And we're just twisting from that thoracic spine again, that mid back. So this is helping us strengthen core muscles, obliques and abdominals, as well as promoting mobility in the spine. Twisting is also really nice because it can stimulate digestion. If you think about the parts of the body that are moving right now, it's everything around our intestinal tract. So it can help keep things moving here if things get lodged along the way. Come back to center, relax the arms down, big breath in, and release. We're going to keep working up the spine. We're going to come to our shoulders. As adults, we carry a lot of stress up in the shoulder region for many of us. So we're just going to simply do a little tense and release practice. We're going to inhale, squeeze the shoulders up towards our ears, and then exhale, you're just going to drop them and release. That's it. So it's an inhale and a squeeze up, and then exhale, let it go. And imagine with each exhale, like you're just letting all of the tension from your day go. Squeeze and release. One more, let it go. And the last little mindful movement we're going to take is for the uppermost part of our spine, which is our cervical spine, which is the back of the neck. And so this part of the spine, keeping it strong, is important for the mobility of our neck and head. So we're going to nice and slowly just bring the chin to the chest and roll one ear over to one shoulder. And then slowly roll around to the other side. Take your time. And again, if something doesn't feel right for you, just back out of it. We're going to make some nice slow circles in one direction. Sometimes you'll notice you'll hear a little bit of crackling away, and that's because we have trapped oxygen bubbles at the base of the neck that get released when we take these neck rolls. The next time you bring the chin to the chest, pause and reverse directions. Next time chin is to the chest, pause once more. Take a breath in, let your head and neck return to neutral. Exhale, let it go. And now you're going to let your eyes settle. Let them either gaze down away from the screen because we're not taking any more movement, so there's nothing more to see. And we want you to start to bring your attention inward. So you can either close the eyes or gaze down at the floor in front of you. Notice how you're feeling after taking those gentle movements. If you notice any shifts in your energy or in the way the body feels, just notice them. And now bringing your attention to your breath, we're going to start to count the breath in for 4 and out for 8. We'll do a few together, and then you'll do a few on your own. So breathing in, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Again, in, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Keep going. In and out. Keep going at your own pace now, counting the breath in for 4 and out for 8. Making the exhales twice as long helps us activate the relaxation response in the body. It takes some getting used to. That's why we want to do a few of these until we get used to the rhythm. And then we're going to add one more element. We're using the breath as our focal point for the mind. So if the mind thinks about other things, come back to counting. Counting the breath in for 4 and out for 8. And now we're going to add one more piece, and that is holding the breath in between the inhale and exhale. You can give it a try. We're going to hold the breath for 7 counts. So we're going to inhale for 4, hold it for 7, and exhale for 8. You're going to try a few because it takes some getting used to. And you can always return back to the one we just did, where we just inhale for 4 and exhale for 8 at any time, if that's what you prefer. If you want to try to add the other piece, let's do a few together. So we'll breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold the breath, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, let it out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Again, in, 2, 3, 4, hold it, 4, 5, 6, 7, exhale, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Take a few more like this at your own pace. We're counting in for 4, hold for 7, exhale for 8. At the end of your next exhale, let your breath return to its natural pace. Keep your eyes lowered or your eyes closed. And we're going to move into a little sensory imagery practice where we're going to imagine that we are babies that have just been born in our body. And just imagine for a moment like you just showed up here and you have no language. Imagine you have no words to tell you what anything is. This is the first moment that you've shown up. And so we invite you to bring your attention to your ears and just notice, without any words, what sounds you can hear. You might notice sounds that come from within you. You might notice sounds coming from the room around you. You might notice sounds coming from farther away. We're not labeling the sounds or telling stories about them. We're just listening. What are the sounds like? And then we'll bring our attention to our nose and feel the movement of the breath in and out of the nostrils. And just notice what it's like to smell through the nose. Bring your attention inside the mouth, discover the tongue, and notice the tongue's ability to taste. What taste is there right now? Without words, just notice what it's like. Staying in the practice, bring your attention to your eyes. If the eyes are closed, softly flutter them open halfway and imagine as if you're looking down at the world in front of you, as if you're seeing it for the very first time. And just notice what's there. As if you have no words to explain anything that you're seeing. Just gazing around and noticing shapes, colors, shadows, and light. Gazing down at the palms of your hands, noticing that these are your hands. Take a moment to notice them and look at them, and let them gently come to rest on top of the thighs, on top of the legs, and just notice the sense of touch, what it's like for the palms to gently press on the tops of the thighs. Then let your eyes start to lower once more or close completely. As you bring your attention inward one more time, find your breath, noticing how you're feeling. And taking one last big breath here in through the nose, blowing it all out through the mouth. And then as you're ready, you're refocusing your gaze and bringing your attention back to the group. So that's a little taste of some of the different practices that we might do when we practice mindfulness. They're all intended to do the same thing, which is promote our sense of presence, our connection with ourself and who we are and how we're showing up in this moment, and to help us access a greater sense of stillness and ease so that we can navigate all of life's challenges with a little bit more calm. As I mentioned earlier, though, this is just an example of different types of practices. There's so many more. So we will leave you with some resources and this slide deck that you can explore more. But for now, just take a moment for yourself to think about how the practices worked for you. Some might have worked better than others. We all have different preferences and styles, and that will be true for our kids too. If you had any effects or changes that you noticed, if something, didn't work well, you can also just make note of those things because they're part of the learning and part of the journey for us. The slide deck, we're going to drop it in the chat. And on this slide here, you'll have lots of links. We have a full MCPS Mindful Moment videos series that has over 100 videos with mindfulness practices that you can access from home. They were created by MCPS staff members. And we do have a Spanish language series as well. If you scroll to the bottom of the page, there's a series of videos in the Spanish language.